Kaspersky Security Bulletin has revealed new key shifts within the cybersecurity world. This includes cybercriminals using media to blackmail organizations, reporting alleged data leaks and attacks via cloud. The attacks do not only have negative financial impacts on businesses, but also pose security threats to governments. And joining us to unpack what organizations and government ought to be doing to protect cyber attacks is Brandon Muller, technical expert at Kaspersky. Brandon, very good afternoon. Appreciate your time today. Now, talk to us about the threats that we can expect in the year 2023.
You know, it all depends. If you have a look at the statistics from previous years, usually what we look at is about a period of 6 to 7 years. It's a cycle, if you will, statistically at least. And we have a look at a variety of different threats that typically come up. Now, about 6 or 7 years ago, we had the WannaCry crisis, right? So this was a ransomware that effectively targeted the entire globe. It targeted private businesses, small businesses, big businesses, everywhere in between. And we're effectively expecting something similar to this nature. Now, of course, within this new year, we also see, well, statistically at least, we see an increase in media to be blackmailed, well, using the media to blackmail businesses. In the past, if we have a look at cyber, let's say, threats or threat actors, they would usually go ahead and they will deal with these things silently with whomever they are targeting. But in this year, we are expecting that to decline and more of an increase of using the public forum, media, in that sense, to effectively, how can I say, pull out a ransom out of whomever they are targeting.
Now, help me understand exactly how that would work. So if you're a large organization and these hackers access your information, which should be private information. So, for instance, if you're a bank, for instance, what would they do with that information when we talk about the blackmail space that you speak of?
All right. So obviously any and every organization that we deal with today, regardless of size, essentially is securing one important thing, and that is data. Now, this data essentially is to be kept secret, confidential, if you will. So any kind of particular organization, depending on vertical, will have different, let's say, important information that's stored on their servers. So for argument's sake, if you have a look at a financial institution, right, a financial institution obviously has credit card information and so on and so forth. And if you shift that to something like a governmental institution, then you're going to look at personal information that can be used to create new loans. It can be used for a variety of different reasons. We've seen this happen in the past. It can even be used to have targeted marketing, but more specifically, we have something called, well, not we, but generally speaking, you have got an attack that's called phishing attack or a dedicated attack towards a single individual. So this is part of social engineering, if you will. If I have a lot of your personal information, for argument's sake, it means that I can give you a call and I can act as your insurance brokerage, I can act as your financial institution, and I can repeat information to you that usually only your financial institution would have, right? And in this way, I can coerce, let's say, you into basically providing with something that I do not have yet. This can be your login credentials, it can be a PIN, it can be a password, it can be a variety of different things. So generally speaking, if you look beyond just the private individual, you also look at business. Now, in this case, if I use the same tactics towards any individual, any employee inside of a business, this means that I can potentially get the necessary keys to the castle, if you will. It only takes one.
Now, do we have enough cyber experts in our country to deal with these challenges?
I'm glad that you touched on that subject. So Kaspersky has actually done a survey of recent, well, it's actually in the later part of 2022, where we had a chat with essentially businesses of all sizes within South Africa specifically. And in this case, there's been a lot of information that has been revealed surrounding this. Now, if you have a look at the statistics, if you have a look at the numbers that was provided during this survey, you can see that about 45% of businesses today in South Africa still deal with cybersecurity as part of the IT, let's say, component inside of the business. Now, of course, IT by itself comprises a variety of different topics that do require its own sets of skills and understanding. Now, if we look at specifically cybersecurity, this is a unique aspect to the business that does not just impact or influence the IT infrastructure or the day-to-day operation of the business, but rather it also goes into the reputational section, it goes into the business driver section, and it can have a direct influence on finances within the business. So it can have an impact on revenue, which is, of course, the great concern for any business.
Well, I suppose the one thing we must also touch on is the issue of legislation, legislation to prosecute perpetrators, for instance, or legislation to protect consumers. How much of that is in place?
So in this case, in South Africa, look, we are making leaps and strides in this case from a judicial perspective to essentially have the right procedures in place and, more importantly, have the right professionals in place to effectively deal with perpetrators of this nature. We can see this ranging all the way back to 2007 effectively, where we've seen a massive increase in even something as, I don't want to use the term as low level, but in my opinion, this is considered low level in cybersecurity. So something as simple as downloading or let's say recording something that is not belonging to you, something you didn't pay for, right? This is a common thread. This is something that happens quite frequently, and it's been happening all pretty much since forever. But nonetheless, that's just one mention point. And we are seeing a massive increase within the government to essentially deal with perpetrators of this nature, reaching into financial institutions, dealing with information, of course, that is not belonging to them, or they do not have the necessary authorization to deal with it. So just one last thing, my apologies. So one last thing that I would like to add here is obviously the POPIA compliance that we brought in quite recently, or that has been implemented quite recently, also speaks volumes towards what we are trying to do with privacy within the company or within the country. My apologies.
Yeah. Brandon Muller, technical expert at Kaspersky. Appreciate your time this afternoon.